Those of you with the unconscious motivation to achieve at all costs, to avoid failure, and to make sure people see you as a success. You performers, you doers, you achievers, you Enneagram 3s. Those of you who could lose yourself a bit in the image that you present to the world because the doing trumps the being. And therefore, sometimes you don't know enough about yourself. And you have to work hard at not performing so you can be present. Enneagram 3s, this is your song by Tay, Cowboy Like Me. I picked it right out of the gates because of this illustration or metaphor of the cowboy. When we look at the cowboy traditionally in storytelling, especially American storytelling, that we have the emotionally guarded man or woman, as we have developed in our storytelling, that we've moved from just a patriarchal story to kind of a more broadened out gender equality. But both characters have an emotional independence. They're pretty calculated, and they avoid intimate entanglements. Now that's just the cowboy. But I love this song because it's pretty layered. There is a narrative being told that you really have to pay attention to. And I like that you can project your own narrative onto it because it's just vague enough. It's just ambiguous enough for you to project your own story. Now, a lot of Taylor Swift songs are about romantic pathology or how we romantically terrorize ourselves. We sabotage ourselves, our dating dysfunction, and then how we can work through that to find a healthy relationship. She's pretty good at doing that and like kind of sealing a bow at the end about, hey, this has worked even though it was hard. But this backdrop is pretty glamorous. It's an arena of privilege in this story. And there's a clandestine meeting between two con artists, two grifters, two storytellers who have infiltrated this arena of privilege. And so there's both a glamorousness, but a darkness. That these people aren't really true. They're not really being their most authentic self. So their defenses have to be up. They have to be calculated and manipulative. They have to be charming because they want to get what they want. So there's already hope and sadness built into this song. And what we want to hear from a 3 is to tell us something true about yourself that's raw and unfinished. Because 3s are so good at spinning a yarn that even when something bad happens to them, they're pretty quick to make that into a win. They don't want to ever signal that they have a lack of success or that they're in a place of vulnerability and weakness. So failure quickly gets switched into a teaching lesson to deceive the audience a bit and deceive themselves. This story has kind of a Great Gatsby meets Bonnie and Clyde meets The Giant. Now, The Giant is a story that most of you you've never not watched the movie, but if you're into James Dean, it's a James Dean film with Elizabeth Taylor and Rock Hudson, and it's that Wild West Texas oil man story. So there's some glamour and prestige to it. I mix these up as I'm listening to this story and think about my own romantic pathology, how I've entered into certain environments, wanting to present something, a desired impression, and I've lost my emotions in it. And I've built my grandeur to present something to the world that isn't actually as authentic as I'd like it to be. So for the achiever, adapting, improvising, crafting strategies, meeting their goals, gaining admiration, and navigating challenging situations. It's all in this story. So this phrase that I like right out of the gates with this song is, I've got some tricks up my sleeve. Taylor says it, owning that about herself as the one character in the story, the one part of the relationship. But then later, she says, you have some tricks up your sleeve. We're cowboys that kind of meet, we're both cut of the same cloth. And often for us to really, as humans, identify in our own personality that something is off, we have to see it in another that is just like us. So I've come up against Enneagram 4s or 4 with 3 wings because I have a heavy 3. that I say, oh, it takes one to know one. You're a pirate like me, or a cowboy like me. I like the pirate archetype for myself. There's been a lot of people who have said I have some kind of pirate energy. But threes have that cowboy energy. And you're a cowboy like me says, oh, I see the same thing in you. And because I see it in you, I can identify it myself and maybe actually not be so guarded. Not need to be so resilient like the cowboy and independent. Maybe be vulnerable and emotionally intimate and authentic. And so when the three start seeing that they have a backup plan or a hidden strategy so that they don't look bad in front of people, they can then start to pursue and appeal to something that is more being oriented and not doing oriented. And this is where they stop spinning as much and just stay in the raw moment. For threes, having that trick up their sleeve symbolizes that there's a resourcefulness and a drive, and it hints at their fear of not looking resilient, being exposed as inadequate. And there's a reliance on external validation. This is who I am. This is who I present. I am strong. I have persevered. I have the signs of working hard. And please see me that way. But the lyrics also speak, and I'll get into this, of the growth journey, that we have to learn to rely on less of an external validation and the strategies to get that external validation, and for performance not to be so predominant, that we can cultivate a deeper, authentic, and self-worth from within. So if you don't already know, my name is Drew. I'm a psychotherapist here in New York City. Please smash that subscribe button. Follow me on my socials. It really helps as I bring more content to your life. And as I go through my own journey and things get unraveled for me and I learn more and more about myself, I want to share it with you. My goal is always to help you find your personal accent, how you show up different in the world so that you are feeling seen, heard, and understood by me. And I picked this series, Enneagram Albums, because I think that music can save lives. So also the Enneagram. With Taylor Swift, it is that I think she crosses generations with her music. And so I see this as a way that an older generation connect with a younger generation can connect with an older generation through not only music, but mental health. Now, I want to say why I picked this song, and is one, because humor involved here is like, I'm a white middle-aged man. I understand that. I'm talking about Taylor Swift songs, and I don't know how many people want to hear that from a white middle-aged man. But also there's two white middle-aged men involved in this song. One is Aaron Dessner from The National. He was the producer and also co-writer of this song. Now, National is one of my favorite bands, and so you're going to hear his atmospheric production behind it. There's, the National has that alternative country pop energy, and you'll feel the moodiness in a lot of the songs that he co-writes and produces with Taylor. And I'm an Enneagram 4, so I love a bit of moodiness. There's both a hope and also a darkness in this song. And because I love National songs, this song just drew me in. There was other songs that I almost picked for you Enneagram 3s, but this really pulled me in. And I love a lot of the country, folk, rock, blues, alternative influences. And on top of that, there's Marcus Mumford from Mumford & Sons, who is the backup vocalist. And this song was recorded in his UK-owned studios. So I also like Mumford & Sons. I mean, it's not one of my favorite bands, but I think that they have some great anthems, and they take some heavy topics and they lighten them up a bit with a lot of musicality in their music. And so it influenced, and every one of these songs hit me in a certain way from 1 to 9 of the Enneagram. So I wanted to share my enjoyment of Taylor songs and Miss Americana kind of entering into my life in the last year, as my clients have been bringing me songs and saying, hey, this song is saving my life right now. So that's one of my goals. We're going to move into the next section, which is called Swiftly Typed, which I'm just going to swiftly type the Enneagram 3s so we can build a foundation, a base to work from. And then we'll move deeper into the song. And thanks just for joining me. It's cool to be with you. And I love talking about the Enneagram and music. It's one of my favorite things to do is bring those two worlds together. All right, thanks for letting me do this, guys. Okay, swiftly type. I'm gonna try to go through this as quick as possible, but also not skipping out too much on you. So we have to start right away with the core motivation, which is to prove that they are lovable through achievements. And why do they act that way? I mean, 3s are motivated by a need to excel and be seen as successful, often shaping their image to gain validation by others. And so they can over-identify with that image and get confused about who they are. A little bit lost in the doing, and as I said before, not in the being. So they often don't know how hard of work they are doing to stay successful, and then in that performance, losing themselves. So it's the core motivation right away. Well, what's the core desire is to feel valuable, to be accomplished, to be admired. And if they do that, and they thrive off success, they'll get the recognition they need, which will, in a sense, bring them to love. Now, the core fear there is that being seen as worthless. I mean, if I'm not accomplishing what I need to and not doing enough, not going fast enough, not getting this thing on track, and anything that gets in my way, out of my way, then I might tarnish my image. And my image is so important to me. Now, for all 3 of the heart-centered folks, 2s, 3s, and 4s, they place a lot of importance and power in other people's hands to affirm them or validate them. And as they grow, they become more, in a sense, healthy, self-centered, and self-focused, and find the ways to give themselves their own validation. So just start from there. That's the fears, desires, and core motivation. Let's bring some strengths into this. They excel, and they are goal-oriented. If you get on board with them, they might take you to the promised land, and they adapt really well. So this song that we're using by Taylor is a song of adaptation. Is a song about fitting in and finding the ways to place yourself in environments that aren't easy to place yourself, to find your level of ambition, to be that chameleon, to put yourself in a place and tap into that energy source and find a little massiveness. Now, this isn't all bad. A lot of this we need in this world. So we have to decipher what isn't working from what is working, and what are the right balance points. What are some of the challenges right out of the gate? Well, like I said, there's a tendency to over-identify with the image or the achievements, and difficulty connecting with your true feelings. I don't want to make this whole song about feelings and connecting to your true feelings, but there is an inherent risk in being the cowboy, because you are out on the range alone a lot, you're getting dirty, and you can be a lone wolf. And one of the healthy ways a 3 can present themselves to the world is by actually not only just serving the community and helping, but allowing others to achieve and get success in that community, not just bypassing them or running beyond them or getting them out of the way as they're not being useful to you, but helping to let them pursue their goals too, and get consensus at times and collaboration. Often a 3 will discard you if you're no longer useful to them. And it's really hurtful for people that are in relationship to 3s because they can easily be put to the side. So if they're avoiding failure at all costs and you're getting in the way of what is their perceived worth and or achievement, you can be discarded. So getting to your emotions will actually help you be empathic and connected to others. Okay. So the emotional focus is maybe our next move, is to actually start finding out what your true feelings are, staying in them long enough and not just spinning them, as I said before, into some kind of narrative that makes you look good, but actually being vulnerable and expressing them, to finding some communities that are confessional, not just communities that want to see you perform for them. Vulnerability, really. Your relationship style is, you're often polished. You can be a chameleon. You want people in relationship to you that supports your goals. So I often see threes be friends with people that they're in business with or doing business with, but often aren't actually as tied to the relationships that they've nurtured before in other environments of work that they've brought with them. Like once those people weren't as useful, they move on. Triggers, well, losing respect and admiration. It's just the obvious one, not looking competent. But here we go into these growth paths, which are, how can you thrive as a three? And by thriving, I don't just mean successful, but like emotionally successful and relationally successful, is you have to learn how to separate your self-worth from your achievements. That if I achieve, cool. But if I don't perceive myself as achieving, or that people don't know me that way, that I'm still okay in this world. That I would maybe be able to stop for a year and not do anything and find out who I am within that. Everything's worth metrics and achievement. And so the move towards emotional honesty and emotional groundedness and being is always going to be an answer here. So focusing on authenticity, allowing your true emotions to come out, yada, 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 growing in deeper connections with friends. I know I'm just kind of like, I'm hoping that you just get this inherently, and that as a three, you've done enough work to start pulling yourself out of the chasm of the lone wolf or the cowboy on the road by themselves with their herd. Integration looks like not seeking external validation, as I said, or the approval of others. And fours and twos have to do this just as much. And as a four with a heavy three wing, not seeing the world as my validator is always a hard part of my growth. And the self-care in that is often having gratitude for things I already have that aren't performance-oriented. That my true value lies in who I am, regardless of what I do. So that's where I'd stop. I mean, we are far seers when we have a heavy three wing, or we are a three. We're looking into the future. As an Enneagram 4 who tends to focus on the past, my three is constantly looking in the future, and my present is often discarded. I'm jumping right over it. And the three has to be very present oriented because it's one of the things they do least well. Then that inflating and ballooning of yourself, to actually allow yourself to deflate a little bit and just be human and to take the mask off. Okay, let's move on. I've beaten you up enough. So why is this song tailor-made for you Enneagram 3s? Yes, I did that. Tailor-made, you get it. Anytime you have a narrative-oriented singer-songwriter, your Bruce Springsteens, your Taylor Swifts, you're going to have often analogies, metaphors, archetypes. So if we just take metaphors, which is from the Greek metaphora, which means a transfer. And there's two characteristics or two components. One is the tenor, which is the thing being described. So in that case, Taylor is talking about her own personality and the personality of this person she's in a relationship with. And then the vehicle, which is what's used to describe it. And we have the cowboy. And I've already mentioned a lot of the characteristics of a cowboy. But what I want to get at here is the lack of vanity of a cowboy. The lack of presentation. So I haven't really gone into subtypes with any of these Taylor Swift songs yet, but I think this is useful here because if you don't know anything about the subtypes, go watch my videos on the subtypes. We have three different types of threes. And there's the self-preserving three, which looks a lot different than the other two. It's a counter type. means it kind of does the counter of what the other two are doing. So all three are vain, but the self-preserving three, they have vanity for not showing vanity. Like they get off on not looking vain. There's a humble air about them. They don't self-promote as much. They are successful, but they don't want to be flashy. And they think that being vain publicly or overtly, and they've tricked themselves into thinking they're not vain, that will disrupt their ethics or their values or their priorities. And that's the self-deceit, which is that they still are kind of getting off on not being vain, which is vain. And then you have the social types, which are a bit more flashy. So the one says, I don't want to draw too much attention to myself. The other one doesn't have as much problem drawing attention to themselves and is a bit more showy, where the other one's a bit more polished and productive. And so the self-promoter and the one that hides that self-promotion are both showing up in this song in the same character. One's talking about having a flashy car, or at one point talking about having a flashy car. And then just the idea of being a cowboy is about being a bit more reserved with your ability to get things done, succeed, and show up in the world with some kind of excellence. So there's a lot of adopting of these personalities going on throughout this song. And the archetype of the cowboy, this facade, is playing out over here, but then there's this other showy character that's within the same character. And I love that complexity. That the image being presented is a little hard for us to get our head around because there's two separate things going on here. And this plays into this other kind of part of the characteristic, this bandit, which is this dual aspect of the cowboy. The cowboy is pretty connected to values, to doing the right thing, at least in our history of understanding of the archetype of the cowboy. Then the archetype of the bandit is a robber, a thief, a charmer, someone who figures out how to scheme and get in and take advantage of other people's vulnerabilities, is a master of facade, a master of switching personas, is almost in the storytelling narrative sense, admired for being so crafty. And as we break down this story of an Enneagram 3, we see that these two characters found each other, that their transmitters or radio waves or radar dishes are looking for someone like themselves because they kind of feel alone in it. And so many Enneagram 3s feel alone in their own little world of success, that they've actually promoted or gotten promoted to places in which they've isolated themselves. And then people around them want something real from them, and they have a tough time giving it because the place that they've achieved is a place of leadership. It's a place of importance. And to look vulnerable in that place is maybe to sacrifice the goal. One of the things I like to just think about is like, how are we, if we were all naked, walking around, a lot of our vulnerabilities would be seen, but we can present well, put on clothes, and define ourselves in a different way than we are actually naked. And therefore we get a bit soul stuck or blocked. And for the Enneagram 3, their emotional bandwidth is the least of the heart-centered folks. So out of the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s, they have least access to their emotion. It doesn't mean that they don't have emotion or they're not there. It's that they have the least amount of words or the least amount of entryway into staying in them and being grounded in those emotions, understanding them, and just being, as I've shared. And they have to be convinced that they will be sweetly rewarded, even though they're grudgingly pushing it back against being in these emotions, because it will actually make you feel more connected. So the embracing of vulnerability And the song starts to highlight that. They're doing that together. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay that in a sense, these two threes are finding each other and being rewarded by letting their guard down and being more intimacy, even though they like to be independent. And then moving beyond what they're doing in this environment, which is kind of presenting well and trying to sneak around and get something they want in a world that they haven't been born into. And they have to redefine success through their relationship and accept their imperfection, accept that they have lives that are fraught with problems, and that the authentic presentation is now being dissected a bit in each other's eyes. And this is good. This is where they can start to let their guard down. The thing they deeply crave is meaningful relationships. And the song reflects this subtle longing for connection. And it's often subtle for a three. They don't even know how big that need is. And there's this struggle with this polished presentation, this exterior, and the true self that wants to settle and be connected and not have to prove themselves and just be known and understood and seen. This is why I picked this song. This is why it's tailor-made for us. Is that we've all of us have gotten off on the Western glorification of presentation and success financially. And through our aims to even help people, I'm going to help so many people, that you have to realize we're all just like each other. Wanting to, at the end of our life, know there was some good people around that we really deeply, intimately connected with, and that they love us and we love them. And that they aren't waiting for us to just do good and well and excellent to be loved. I picked this song for that reason. I picked it because it's moody. Because sometimes you threes need to get hit with a wave of sadness, with a wave of heaviness. And there's something in this song, and maybe it's that Aaron Dessner, National. David Letterman always kind of jokes about the National, because he loves their music, that it's always a bit morose and a bit melancholy. And that's a good realization for a three, to step into that place. Not to swim in it forever, but just to hear hey, there's some heaviness there and you can look at it. Okay. I know I'm kicking your ass on so many different levels, but know that the three inside of me loves the three inside of you, and it's heavy in me. It's my next highest number. So let's move on to Endgame. Finish this up with maybe some positivity. All right, folks. Welcome to Endgame, which is a song title taken from the catalog of our beloved Tay-Tay. And it is our closure time where I try to put things together. I go through a tailor-tation, where before I do any of these videos, I try to listen to a song 50 or 60 times, and I often am diminishing my emotional experience of it because I'm trying to dissect it and plug it into the Enneagram. So right before this conclusion, I listened to the song about 5 or 6 more times. And I thought about how my image, my identity, my ambition are so loud. How I present to the world. And that vulnerability is just as hard for me, I think, at times as it is for a 3, even though I'm a 4, who can deal with my emotions pretty well. That I don't love going into environments where I feel like I don't know how to perform well. There's an insecurity and often a defendedness. And I want to put a certain character forward. We all do that in some ways, not just the 2, 3s, and 4s who place a lot of power in other people's hands to define them and validate them, but all of us do that. Now, the 3 might move towards people of influence and have a lot of acquaintances and not many partners. They might be a bit more lone wolf than others, but I had to identify the lone wolf inside of me, the part that denies emotion and pushes past it. And I had to restrain myself from dissecting the song and just feeling into it, feeling the melancholy of it, but also feeling the hope in it, of finding partners in life that bring that out of me. And so instead of giving you more details and dissecting this anymore, I'll just try to get you to think about how you've protected your image, how we all need to embrace imperfection and seek genuine connection, and remind all of us, including me and first and foremost me, that my true worth lies in not what I do, but who I am. And I know how ridiculously cliche that is, but it's true. That's it. My name is Drew. I love putting the Enneagram together with music. I think music saves our lives. Smash that subscribe button, because I need it for affirmation for all the doing that I'm doing. And also, just follow me and we can stay connected that way. If you want to get in touch with me for doing some work, drew@drewnewkirk.com. And as always, I end with the quote from Rainer Maria Rilke: "Everything is yet to be done. Everything." I appreciate that you guys are even out there and allow me to tap into my 3, where I got that drive, baby. 3s aren't all bad. All right. Thank you. Peace out.